Philosophy is a method of training logical thinkers to accomplish something in order to discover the truth. Zakaria and Long, 2013, mentioned that Ibn came to the conclusion that philosophy can act as a guardian and guide in the activities of the human mind in the pursuit of truth and happiness. According to research, philosophers were the first to attempt to use reason to discover the truth, particularly regarding the virtues of the universe. Among the main Western intellectual leaders of the Middle Age was Saint Thomas Aquinas, a knowledgeable philosopher who produced beneficial ideas and solved societal issues. He was termed a theologian, seeing his idea on the concept of divinity relating to religious people believed were highly instructional and established harmony between religion and reasoning. Hence, the focus of this research will be on Saint Thomas Aquinas' idea of divinity.
About concept of philosophy by Thomas Aquinas. Aquinas employed ideas based on Aristotle's philosophy to define the various purviews of the physical world, science, and the spiritual world, God. The distinctions between fundamental and composite substances were established by Aquinas. The essence of something is its primary substance. For example, all persons' characteristics such as height, skin color, and hair color are secondary to the core of who he or she is. The primary substance is something other than physical, and in the case of humans, this is humanity's core nature. This is clearly an attempt by Aquinas to contradict Plato's theory of forms, because according to Aquinas, a chair has an essence that is independent of whether it is made of wood or plastic, or whether it is round or square. According to Robert Fields, 2011, minds and angels were primary substance to Aquinas, and God was a person who contained all characteristics or perfections. There was no distinction between the basic form and the physical form for God. This is essentially what made of God, what made God what he was, and what made other beings composite, formless than God. Aquinas' argument about the nature of God's omnipotence is a key topic in his philosophy. The concept of omnipotence, according to Aquinas, has been misconstrued. While God created the laws of nature and gave reason to human as a means of obtaining truth, Aquinas does not believe that God can defy logic. Consider what would happen if God created round squares. The concept of round square is logically contradictory and cannot be created by God, not because it is a constraint on his omnipotence, but because the concept is logically impossible in and of itself.
Now, I will continue this presentation by stating our group's problem statement. According to Gomez 2019, the topic of God was approached by philosophers with any belief or religion being considered. Philosophical discussion by underlining the major aspects of RAHMAN's new language. Besides, we are discussing about the methods. We are also discussing about Thomas Aquinas' biography and what is strength and weakness of him in this argument.
Okay, for research question, the research question of this study are: first, what are the biography of Thomas Aquinas? Second, what are the methods used by Thomas Aquinas to prove the existence of God? And third, what are the strength and weakness of Thomas Aquinas' argument? Okay, for research objective, based on the research question, the objective in this study are: first, to explore the biography of Thomas Aquinas. Second, to understand the method used by Thomas Aquinas to prove the existence of God. And lastly, to examine the strength and weakness of Thomas Aquinas' argument. Okay, next, research methodology. The qualitative method was used to accomplish this objective. This study used a qualitative data collection method based on document analysis to provide relevant information to the topics and context under discussion. Furthermore, library research is employed as one of the data gathering approach. This objective of this research is to study the biography of Thomas Aquinas, method used by Thomas Aquinas to prove the existence of God, and to examine the strength and weakness of Thomas Aquinas' argument. Okay, that's all from me.
Okay, next, I will present about biography of Thomas Aquinas. Thomas Aquinas was Europe's greatest medieval philosopher and theologian. The Middle Age in Europe was a golden age for Christianity. The realm of thought in this period also often gets a strong reaction from the times that follow, namely the modern centuries. One of the endeavors that has been of great interest to philosophers of this country is to harmonize faith and ratio. Thomas Aquinas succeeded in uniting the teachings of Augustine, which had until then determined thought in Europe, with the philosophy of Aristotle, and thereby gave new impulse to intellectual life in the West. since Thomas Aquinas' philosophy began to develop as a separate science. Aquinas was born in Nepal in 1224 at a period of economic breakdown and political intrigue between the city-states and rising nation, as well as the strong influence of the church. Thomas' parents were minor aristocrats who educated their son for religious life from an early age, sending him to study with Benedictine friars when he was 5 years old. At the age of 14, Thomas Aquinas was sent to the University of Nepal for further studies, but he was more interested in the teachings of the Dominican order. This group is known for its intellectual teachings and love for the poor. The existence of Thomas in the order group was beyond his parents' expectation. Therefore, Thomas Aquinas was persuaded not to enter the group, but his family's efforts were unsuccessful. In 1257 to 1259, Thomas Aquinas was ordered to study theology in Paris. Upon his return from Paris, Thomas Aquinas went straight to Italy and then lectured at various places for 10 years. During this period, he discovered with the manuscript of Aristotle that entered the country through Muslim Spain. Aquinas began to study the manuscript and wrote many commentaries. Unlike his contemporaries, Thomas Aquinas believed in the compatibility of pagan philosophy with church teaching. Much of his work can be read as an attempt to provide a synthesis of classical and theological thought. This effort put himself right in the middle of attack by secular scholars who believe that Thomas erred in presenting pagan source and church leaders who suspect the mingling of pagan ideas with religious dogma. Together with his hectic schedule of lectures and studies, the burden of responding to the attack of this to grow drained his strength. He became ill and died near his birthplace in 1274. Thomas Aquinas' most important work is Summa contra Gentiles, written during 1259 until 1264. This book attempts to establish the truth of Christianity by presenting arguments to readers who are considered unchristian.
Next, I will present methods that Aquinas used to prove the existence of God. First and foremost, according to Ilodique 2018, the motion is the first proof Thomas Aquinas to prove the existence of God. The objective of Aquinas is to explain what causes motion. He makes a variety of claims about the origin of motion, which are based on the Aristotelian doctrines of act and potency. Besides, Aquinas proved from efficient causality. Rather of reflecting on the phenomena, Aquinas used it to create a case for God's existence. Furthermore, throughout the sequence of efficient causality, there is some dependency. The need of resolving the worst will become the sequence of proof that demonstrates God's existence. Next, the difference among possible and necessary beings was widely known. To explain for the reality that there are potential beings in creation, Aquinas claimed that there should be a necessary being. According to the posteriori method, there must have been some being that exists out of necessity. Furthermore, things have several grades of significance. For example, having certain students who are better than others necessitates the creation of a top student classification. The idea of level in fact and actuality is a basic part of Platonic and Aristotelian metaphysics. Last but not least, the design argument is based on the assumption that the universe is ordered. Things never happen by coincidence, but rather with a particular goal in mind. According to logical, if there is a design, there must be a designer.
The cosmological argument is a series of arguments that attempt to prove the presence of a sufficient reason or first cause for the universe's existence. In other words, the cosmological argument seeks to prove the existence of God by looking at the universe. The argument is divided into 5 ways: motion, efficient cause, possibility and necessity, gradation, and design. The efficient cause argument is the strongest evidence by Thomas Aquinas to prove the existence of God. It is logical and reasonable compared to others. The argument is simple. God exists because a first efficient cause is required. It is a universal concept that everything is caused by something. According to Dawkins 2006, Aquinas defined God as the uncaused cause. An object must be caused by something because it cannot cause itself. An object cannot be its own efficient cause because that would mean that it exists before itself. One thing is caused by another. It is impossible for something to exist prior to itself. Therefore, the efficient cause must be something other than the said object. A first efficient cause is essential in a sequence of efficient causes. The middle and last efficient causes would not exist if the first efficient cause did not exist. This chain cannot be determined infinitely since an endless chain of causes is unlikely to exist. Hence, there must be a first efficient cause that started it all. As a result, God is the first efficient cause of all things. Next is the weakness of Thomas Aquinas' argument. The design argument is scientific proof that God exists. Normally, but not always, this argument begins by identifying various empirical elements of the universe that provide evidence of intelligent design and inferring God's existence as the best explanation for these elements. Because design and purpose are closely linked, the design argument is also known as the teleological argument, which includes telos, the Greek word for goal or purpose. According to this argument, God is the intelligent being who is responsible for the order of things. This argument is weak because while it provides the proof of God's existence, it questions his authority over intelligent beings into doubt. For example, the argument states that God must exist because he directs the actions of unintelligent things toward a goal. Without him, these things cannot survive. Humans, on the other hand, are intelligent beings. They do not require help from other beings since their logic allows them to pursue their own goals. In this argument, the presence of God appears to be proven only in the situation of unintelligent beings.
Following our examination of Thomas Aquinas' 5 ideas of divinity, there are some recommendations that might help us better comprehend Thomas Aquinas' thoughts on the concept of divinity. Thomas Aquinas' works are first and foremost a synthesis of philosophy and theology. Thomas employed a variety of theological perspectives to explore God's existence, making his explanation systematic. He also used philosophical and intellectual ways to show the presence of God, such as epistemology and cosmology. Summa Theologica is one of his most famous works. Next, Thomas Aquinas' view of divinity differs from other philosophers, such as Saint Anselm, who began his proof with the idea of the existence of a perfect God. Meanwhile, Thomas' conception of divinity begins with the sense, rather than with the nature of azali and extrinsic perfection. Thomas proposed 5 ways to prove the existence of God. Firstly, the motion, second, the efficient cause, the possibility and the necessity for degradation, and lastly, the design. Finally, Thomas Aquinas' concept of divinity is vast and profound, as well as vital in the realm of philosophy. Because of Catholic Christianity, Thomas Aquinas' understanding of God's existence is more tested. Thomas Aquinas applied his 5 theories to pursue others, particularly atheists. As a Muslim, although the philosophical approach can provide us with knowledge about God's existence through the theory of reason, we cannot know the true attribute of God properly, because the human intellect is limited while God is perfect.